Hi guys, you know what it is. It's balance patch day. I'll be honest with you, I've heard your feedback and I've seen people ask for a bit more, I guess, concise content. So I've gone and read a bit through the balance adjustment preview, kind of gave it a first look over, so it's not so surprising as to what I'm getting, and I can kind of give a more clear, concise opinion. Let's get into it. So first and foremost, the characters that we have this time around are kind of odd. Some are maybe deserving to be here, some of them are not, and some just feel weird. So as you can see here, we have Lone Crescent Balona, Death Dealer Ray, Araminta, Benevolent Roman, Roman, Cilla, followed by Bastion of Perlucia, which is a pretty bad artifact or a very niche artifact, and then Durandal. The effect, the lasting effect, sleep being changed is kind of interesting, but we'll leave that for later. So the first character that's been buffed, which in my opinion, I guess she could be a little bit more usable, but you guys saw the EpicSeven World Championship, or if you didn't, you should check it out. They kind of made Lone Crescent Balona look really good. If you saw the tier list, and you've seen plenty of tier lists at this point of people that were talking about the headhunt, you've seen that Lone Crescent Balona is also pretty strong. A lot of these changes that I'm seeing right now kind of point towards her being, I don't want to say like very, very overbuffed, but these are certainly changes that will make her more usable. However, I am kind of curious whether or not this is going to push her over the edge. As it is right now, Emma Balona is great against fighting against characters like Captain Landy and against, general AoE characters. Her obvious weaknesses are being debuffed or getting stunned by Arrowell on occasion, and then stuff like Aiden or Little Queen Charlotte one-shotting her. Now, from what I've seen right here, it basically means that, or from, I guess, everything that I've seen so far about the changes, she gains Soul Burn, or she has a new Soul Burn on her S1. They reduced the cooldown of her S3, I think, to just be what it was, or to be kind of similar, or to compensate for not having the change, or not having the Soul Burn, rather. She gains more Fighting Spirit now when she does her S2, or when her S2 procs, or just in general when she gets hit, or whenever she hits someone, or when an ally gets hit. And then furthermore, I guess they just increased her overall damage across the board. As you can see, the cooldown of things are, or the cooldown of her S3 is what gets lowered. She doesn't gain quite as many souls, which I guess this is like kind of an adjustment. It kind of looks more like she is focused on her allies being attacked as opposed to her using S3 and getting all the fighting spirit. But I don't think that was really anyone's game plan anyways when it came to Emma Balona. That being said, her gaining more fighting spirit from being hit by AoEs is kind of weird, just because she already gained so much, or she was already in a really good spot when it came to countering AoEs. I don't know exactly what they were looking for with this change. I guess perhaps for newer players, or for early mid to mid late game players that are struggling still to build her, because she does have a bit of a difficult kit to build. They decided to give you more damage. They decided to give you an extra damage Soul Burn on S1, which is technically a bit more usable, or a bit easier to use in terms of like game plan and strategy than having to use or determine whether or not the Soul Burn before was worthwhile. That being said, this kind of feels unwarranted or unnecessary. Again, I think a lot of people, especially in the more competitive RTA sense, always thought that she was strong. Yes, maybe you're going to, maybe you kind of need like more of a game plan if you want to use it on, if you want to pick her earlier in your draft. But for Arena and Guild War, this character is kind of disgusting, to be honest with you. She's a great answer to any Navy Captain Landy defense. She does very well against Senya. She kind of beats up Shu too, depending on how lucky or unlucky the rat is. But generally speaking, there's not that much that can beat her. She has Sigurd sights, she has counter, she's tanky, you don't need crit chance on her, and sometimes you don't even need speed. So where this is coming from, I'm not sure. This feels like very, very unwarranted, because again, considering Blood Moon Haste just has no... Where'd he go? I don't know. But anyways, Blood Moon Haste is not here. I don't know why he's... I guess, been forgotten. But the next character we have is Death Dealer Ray, and Death Dealer Ray definitely deserves a bit of love. He's definitely a more niche and difficult to use character, so I'm sure that this changes, or I hope that this change is going to try and make him a bit more usable. And again, just based off of kind of reading what they did to him, it kind of does. So the first thing that they changed is that rather than having the detonate of the venom on S1, they just made it so that now you have an additional, or you have a successful attack dealing additional damage equivalent to like injury inflicted on the target. This, if I recall, is kind of what Shu, I think this is what they did with Shu. I think her S3 has something, or reads something similar to this, which is cool. I think this whole like detonate venom thing is a bit abusable, especially because like Death Dealer Ray basically needs to be fast, or he needs to have like a lot of CR in order to start like S1ing and stuff. And oh, is he gonna get debuffed? Is he not gonna get debuffed? Like a whole bunch of things were kind of tough, especially when you need effectiveness to land it too. Anyways, that being said, they kind of reworked his entire, or they didn't really rework it, but they reshuffled things around, because now his S2 gives him pestilence and the effectiveness and stuff, and that's really, I mean, that's still fine. But what they decided to do though is that now pestilence reads that after attacking on the bearer's turn, you inflict venom for 1 turn, and then you detonate venom effects on the enemy after you apply them. So this is, I mean, okay, for me personally, I feel like it's a bit of a satisfaction decrease, because I always thought it was really funny when you had like 8, like, you know, you had 8 venoms or something on an enemy, and then you S1'd, and then they, like, you know what I mean? But this is still pretty cool too, because now you will kind of always see the impact of like venom and stuff like that, or you'll see it more quickly. This is kind of, I think, the approach that characters like Alencia and stuff will take, where you can see the injury like firsthand, and you could see like just how good, like, oh, a character is suddenly half health, and kind of similar to ML Shu too, where you S3 with ML Shu and suddenly the character only has half their health. This is cool though, and it applies to everyone that has pestilence. So I think that this is probably going to come back. I mean, Death Dealer Ray and Solitaria are already really nice when it comes to fighting slower, or like tank down teams, as people like to call it, a bunch of knights and bruisers and such like that. This makes him a bit easier, I guess, not even just like in terms of like gear score to use, but in terms of literally just how you process how the character should work. It just, you throw the S2 up, everyone starts landing pestilence, and then they get, you know, injured. Everyone can do it. It doesn't matter who's on your team, basically. And then everyone's gonna be basically at half health, or not half, but like a lot of characters will take likely 70 or be dropped down to 75-ish% health after the first turn. And if you're trying to land it on the same character, you can keep redetonating venom on the same target. So that could be really good if you're trying to prioritize like lowering someone like I don't know, APOC Ravi's health down, or you know, Senya, Yolha, any characters like these, Crow. I mean, but you know, who uses Crow? Anyways, the next thing that they changed that I think is really big, in addition to the fact that they lowered the cooldown of the anatomical mutation, that's also really big. His S2 cooldown has been reduced by 1 turn. The other thing that's really big is the fact that they kind of removed all focus from his kit, and I know I focused on the pestilence, which is obviously really good, and it's a really cool change just for usability. They removed his focus, so now he can use his S3 from the beginning, but now he has a 5-turn cooldown on it, and it dispels 2 debuffs, and it's essentially the same thing where you get to put everyone to sleep and you put venom for 2 turns. The difference though is that now the Shu injury pass over the detonate injury thing that you used to have in the past is not on his S3. Or it's not on his S3 anymore. As you can see here in the red text, dealing additional damage equivalent to 80% of the target's injuries. Excuse me. They moved that to his S1, and now his S3 is just the debuff, right? It controls everyone, it puts everyone to sleep. It's a sleep for 1 turn and venom for 2 turns. So this is obviously really cool, or it's a different kind of change, I would say. Again, even for me, I don't really use this character that much, but in terms of like how simplistic it is for my eyes to understand, like all these characters that require focus, like Archdemon, Mercedes, not that these aren't like you know, the worst kits in the world, or not that these kits don't make the most amount of sense. They're slow characters, and then suddenly you build up into, you ramp in the fight and you get the big S3. But that is admittedly a bit harder to use nowadays, especially when characters like Shu just, like at the snap of her fingers, she just takes you down to half health, right? You have someone like ML Landy, where it's just, okay, you get like the focus, but like, you know, 4 counters, and you have Elbrus, and you have built-in, you have like counter in your kit, like it's, or a counter from like counter set, and then you just immediately get off the S3, you heal yourself. There's so much buffering. I felt like Ray was missing something like that, because again, putting venom or like inflicting venom on someone is not really the same as, you know, it's not really the same as detonating it immediately, or it's not the same as debuffing everyone. It's not the same as instantly getting the instant gratification that other characters get, especially from the ML department. That being said, though, I don't think he was that bad in the past. He was difficult or niche to use, but if you thought that you weren't going to see Solitary Death Dealer Ray at all in RTA, I just don't think you played enough games to fight against them. I see them a decent amount, especially if you're trying to play very, very slow, if you're trying to play comps like Maid Chloe and Dark Corvus, stuff like that. Anyways, that's besides the point. This is a decent change, I guess, to Ray. He looks easier to use now, or at least I could see where their game plan is at, and you don't have to focus so much on all the random things in between. Now, Araminta also got changed. I'll be honest with you, Araminta is a character that will probably forever be forgotten. They made this change here, and I understand, like, you see like a few changes. If you see like they have a burn, or they have like an increased burn or something, or effectively they just removed the detonate effect, and they increased like this combat readiness by 30 or by 5% from its previous effect, and then they changed the stun. They increased the stun chance by 20%. Now, if you're too long, don't read. They basically said, we want Araminta players to be able to choose whether or not they want to detonate the burn. What? I don't really understand. I guess if they want to stack all the burns and stuff, I guess that's kind of the angle that they were taking with it. I don't really understand what who this is appealing to, or what kind of content this is appealing to. Some people play Araminta and swear that she's decent. I personally haven't tried her out like enough to say that she's good. However, the stun is obviously nice, and basically not having the EE anymore, which is what this comes from, right? You don't have the CR push EE, and instead you get to choose whether or not you want to detonate on your S1. That's why you gain the additional 5% CR here. However, this feels more like an EE change than an actual change to the kit. I mean, 20% chance increase the stun when you were going from 50. I mean, 50 to 70 is nice, but you're being used in a buff change, right? And you're going to increase the stun chance of an Araminta to 70 instead of 100. And this character is not really playable at all. She has no ship on S3. Her S1 is an applied burn. Like, what are we talking about? In any case, this doesn't really make sense. They didn't even increase the chance for you to burn, which also is kind of sus. And then, like, again, I guess if you want to use the detonate thing, effectively you just gained 5% CR and 20% stun. I don't really know what they're targeting here. They just say that like it was challenging to using content that required inflicting and maintaining multiple burn effects. I guess they're saying it's only for PvE, but it's kind of a shame, because if they're going to touch a character like this, why not just make it like an additional burn? Like, no one's going to cry if Araminta has 2 burns instead of 1. No one's also going to cry if Araminta's burn is just 100% chance. Like, I'm not really sure why there's 70%. Like, nothing in her kit is guaranteed. Essentially, she doesn't apply 2 chances of burn or anything like that. She's pretty much in every way, shape, and form, at least from what I can tell, worse than Silverblade Araminta. She does, I guess, increase like she does self CR push herself. But in terms of like the trending for the previous characters that we just saw, ideally you would want to make the character more usable, right? Like I would imagine that's what people are focusing on. They wanted to make it more appealing, or more appealing to new players and easier for new players to use. And that's kind of not what happened here. You get to choose between an EE, and they increase the chances done by 20%. Maybe they're thinking about content that I'm not thinking of, in which case that's totally fair. By all means, I could just be wrong. However, I'm not really sure if this is the character that I would have wanted to be changed for PvE, considering, I mean, it doesn't touch on any of the relevant content that I think of right now. It doesn't touch on Rift. It doesn't touch on Hunt. I'm assuming we're not talking about Golem, and I guess if there's something in Nightmare Raid, Ancient Inheritance, etc., like maybe that's what they're talking about. But that's besides the point. The next character that I think I suppose, like he does deserve like some adjustment and some love, is Benevolent Roman. And as you can see here, he's immune to silence and you can't push him back. So this, I feel like, is kind of a jab at Zio. As you can see here, he has a 2-strip and defense break and silence for 2 turns, which is kind of impactful. This basically means that you can't push him back as Zio, and he's guaranteed to take the turn, assuming that you are able to take, you are faster than the other units on his team. And in all honesty, a 2-turn silence and defense break is kind of impactful, except against, I guess, Spectre Tenebria on occasion, especially if you aren't having someone that follows up. I don't know whether or not this is going to be enough of a change to make him viable, because again, sure, you can make him immune to silence, but he's not immune to Cilius S2 or, Cilius's debuffs. He can get slept by Lua, and these are kind of the characters that you're competing with. They made him immune to silence with the purpose, obviously, especially because you can't push him back. They made him with the intent of obviously countering Zio, or that has to be it. There's no other reason for him to just be immune to silence and also not be able to be pushed back. There's only one character in the game that really does both, where it's relevant at the moment, and that's Zio. However, with a 75% chance to defense break, and I guess the strip is nice and the silence is nice, but whether or not that'll be enough to sell people on it, I'm not sure. I can check really quick to see what his base stat is. Sorry, brief intermission. I don't want to misstate this. Where is he? Benevolent Roman is 112 speed, which is, that's even tougher to kind of justify. I don't know if his EE, let me make sure. Does he have an EE of sorts? 112 speed, however, while I'm checking this, is really, really, really slow. Like, that is he doesn't have an EE. That is crippling slow. I don't know why this character doesn't have an exclusive equipment. However, 112 speed, do you know what I mean? Like, kind of tough to justify. This could be nice. And like, I know I'm giving him a lot of flack, but he could be really good for Arena and Guild War, because now if you're fighting against a Zio, it's going to hit the Broman. Broman doesn't care. And oh, you know what? Actually, that's a great way to look at this. If you're using him for Arena or Guild War, now you have a guaranteed Zio target that doesn't care, and then you defense break and silence the whole team after the fact. Boom, bing, bang, boom. There you go. There's your use case for him. Smilegate didn't say it. They just said, he's effective against enemies who silence the opponent, but this is what they're really talking about. So there's your answer to Zio. The next character that we have, another very kind of confusing character, I guess, it's just Cilla. Now, again, Cilla is like a side story character and you get her, but they simply increase their damage across the board. It's too early to tell what this actually means. I don't know if this means that she, I guess, gains effectiveness or gains more effectiveness in Rift. However, they did change their exclusive equipment now to decrease the enemy for 2 turns when using Flame Kiss. So this is one of the changes that I think will probably be, or is more focused towards Rift, because we have been looking for a character that gives out attack buff, or has an attack buff for themselves, or can self-attack buff while also defense breaking and also being a decent DPS. Because in all honesty, you want more consistency for the defense break at this point in Rift. If you haven't done it already, you should check it out. That content's really important, especially if you want a load of a variety of random but good gear. It is more consistent, especially once you get to like the 2 or 1 clear range in terms of getting good gear. But as you can see here, they changed it now that it decreases defense. It's just a 100% chance to def break for 2 turns when you use Flame Kiss. I believe Flame Kiss is her S3. So that's obviously really good. I believe what it was in the past was that it was a 50% chance to defense break. It doesn't say here, but if you now have access to this character, you can maybe use Cilla with effectiveness alongside Haste and Mercedes and like Fire Charlotte, whatever team you want. And now you have 2 defense breaks instead of 1. And that's obviously really nice because you want consistency, like I said. And it's just, in general, really nice that you have a character that can heal themselves, provide attack buff for themselves, S3 and defense break. All these things are really nice. She's not that squishy because she's a mage and she has high defense. But anyways, this is just a Rift change. For those of you hoping to see her in Arena or Guild War, you probably won't, but that's okay, because if this is going to be Smilegate's like a olive branch for people that hate doing Rift, and hey look, now there's a character that you probably have or you could get for 900 Skystones, invest in Cilla. Maybe you don't invest in her. I'm probably going to try her out for Rift to see if she's good, but yeah, that's her change. And finally, we have the 2 artifacts. The first one is Bastion of Pelusia, which now grants immunity and a barrier to the caster and the ally in the back row. Originally, people have been using Bastion as like someone on, or as an artifact on characters like Trozette or Eaton, so that they can give immunity and characters like Lua can't strip it, or, you know, someone just has a barrier and you can't one-shot them, anything in between. But a lot of people fixate on the barrier plus the immunity, because it means that you can't, you know, if there's any character that strips one buff, it doesn't strip one buff. Or it doesn't strip the immunity, so they can't get debuffed. That being said, now that it's granted to not the ally with the highest attack, and you have more control of how you use it, you can just put it on like the character in the front and the character in the back, and you can manipulate these tiles at any time. This is a nice quality of life. Just being able to move it, I think, is just generally more pleasant to deal with. So I like it a lot. I don't think there's any problem with it. Just more flexibility. The artifact was not bad by any means. It was a niche artifact anyways. Cool. And finally, we have Durandal, which is what they should have had to begin with. Nowadays, having an artifact that doesn't apply until like a very specific condition works for this is, I believe, for warriors, right, is very kind of weird, because a lot of warrior artifacts nowadays are very excuse me. A lot of warrior artifacts nowadays are very, very strong, especially at the very beginning. You're competing with stuff like Golden Rose. You're competing with stuff like, I guess it's not really a warrior artifact, but like artifacts that you could take, like Proof of Valor or Draco Plate. Sorry, I apologize. But stuff like this, Sepulchrum, Prayer of Solitude, all these artifacts gives you a lot of stat at the very beginning, and Durandal is definitely one of these artifacts that, even though you want to be able to use it as like a cheese artifact or as a cycling CR push artifact, if someone just keeps you above 75% health, you just feel bad. Like, that's just the truth. If you're running this on someone like Dark Corvus, this is obviously really nice as well, because 16% push when you're below 75% health, which is maybe not what you're going to get, but just in general, gaining the 8% push at base, no matter what, so long as you're getting hit, is great. And honestly, splitting it in half and still receiving some portion of the effect from Durandal is obviously a nice quality of life. I don't know if it's going to break the bank on anyone enough to say, yes, now you should be using this. However, 8% CR push is not really something to scoff at. I believe it's about 20-ish, 25-ish speed on average. But anyways, that's Durandal. Also a really nice change, just not the most insane change. They definitely need to adjust other artifacts. I'm looking at you, Sepulchrum. Maybe some love to make it not just Proof 2.0, or I don't know, like maybe, or Bez's or Hickam, you know what I mean? That other mage artifact. Anything in between, you know what I mean? We could change one of these, or we could balance more. Who knows? Anyways, the final thing that they changed is sleep, and now it reduces evasion by 100% when a character is slept. Okay. This is more of a quality of life change than anything else. If you get 20%ed by Remnant Violet, or Remnant Violet's like Moonlight Dreamblader or whatever he has, Shepherd of the Hollow, or, you know, something like that, it does suck. And admittedly, I do like countering evasion characters. I really hate evasion characters. If you play evasion, I'm sure, or fight into evasion, you hate evasion as well. It's funny to play with. It is annoying as hell to play against. However, that being said, this is a nice change. I'm not too upset about it. These are, I guess, or all of these changes in general, in combination with like the sleep, they all feel decent, like they're in the right direction, but this is our patch for a whole month. I don't think anyone is going to get truly changed. I don't know if they're trying to hold off on the fact that Famir is coming out and they don't know how good or bad she's going to be. And then there's all these characters that are cool. And the last time that we had the balance patch, like Knockwall kind of overshadowed her, or overshadowed the balance characters. We were concerned about what was going to come out. But just based off of what we've seen here, this is kind of a lackluster month. This feels more like a PvE month, or like a new player only focused month. They changed Cilla, which is obviously, you know, it's Rift focus. Roman is nice, I guess, for Arena and Guild Wars, which is cool. Araminta, they said in certain situations where you want to have burn effects stay longer. Don't think that they mean that for RTA. And the Death Dealer Ray and Balona have obviously been changed for PvP. But in general, it kind of is unfortunate. I feel like we would have gotten something more. But overall, I'd say the patch is decent. Probably a 7 out of 10 patch. There could have been more. There's probably characters that deserve it more in terms of who should have been buffed. Like, I think maybe Judge Kisei should have also been on here. Muna, like ML Haste, any of these characters. Anyways, guys, that's going to be for this video. Make sure to like, comment, turn the notification bell. Let me know what you think of this format as opposed to the other one. The other format I did, I'll admit, guys, it was just a lot of me, like, my initial impressions and reaction to, like, the announcement of things. But this one's a bit more of an analytical approach. Anyways, that's going to be it for this one. Make sure to check out the rest of my socials. TikTok, Twitch, Discord, Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, all that jazz. I'll see you guys on the next one, though. Adios.